Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today we are going to be using the cloud stencil and the over the rainbow set from My Favorite Things. Just a quick note, if you're watching this when the video first uploads this Wednesday, which is May 25th, this stamp set and its matching dies, wow, are actually part of the My Favorite Things Wednesday Blitz deal. So you can get the stamps and dies for 17 bucks or just the stamp set for $7. So if you're interested in that, they'll be linked below. If you could head over, it is an affiliate link, which means I do get a portion of the sale, but it doesn't cost you any extra. So I bought this set probably like, I don't know, a month ago when it was first released. I thought it was so cute, totally fell head over heels for the little rainbow. And so I wanted to use it in two different ways. So we're going to be doing a day and a night scene. Recently in my videos, I told you the last time, like a couple of people had commented that it had been a while since I had done some things that are more traditionally me, bright colors, black outline, and scene cards. So I wanted to kind of get back to doing that since I had the time to do it. Here, what I'm doing with I think the cloud stencil's pretty self-explanatory. It flips, it's got 4 different clouds on the different sides. But I wanted to do a day and a night scene. So for the day scene, I am adding some extra color into my clouds. Now, it might look a little bit crazy as we're going, but no, once the whole scene comes together, it's really just going to kind of look a little bit fun and a little bit more interesting because I don't have a whole lot going on in like the background of this card. Adding some extra colors just gives it a little bit more interest and makes it a little bit more fun. Obviously, you know, when you're looking at the sky, you know, typically you have, you know, your white clouds and blue, but they are, you know, filled with water vapor, and so they can be reflective of other colors. And so I thought that adding in some pinks and purples would be fun. Now, let's talk about scene building. Clearly, I have not been scene building in quite some time because I should have masked my images. And I will for the second one. I will for the night scene. But I didn't for the day scene because I was so excited to do the background that I didn't take my steps and plan it out, but I was able to make it work. So if it's a darker scene, like, and you've done a ton of ink blending, I don't know that you're going to be able to make that work. You might have to use a die or some fussy cutting, but because mine was pretty light, I was able to kind of salvage it. So I did stamp my little kitty cat and then I masked him off so that I could stamp the rainbow behind him. And this is really where I was like, oh, I should have done this first. I should have. So do as I say, not do as I do. But if you're like me and you made an error and you didn't mask, look at it, see if it's light enough to salvage. If not, like I said, just cut out your images, or you could do a situation where you just start over. I don't like starting over. You guys know that. And that's why I did not here. I just kind of worked with what I had. But every card is not perfect. In fact, none of mine are, because I'm not perfect, because I'm a person and I make mistakes. So here, this is the nighttime scene, and I chose to use the sleeping kitty for this one. And so this one I did mask correctly. So I stamped my cat because I wanted him to be in the front, or her, him, whomever, whatever this cat wants to be. So I stamped them first because I want that to be in the forefront. So whatever you want to see the most of, you stamp first and then mask it. And then I went ahead and stamped and masked my rainbow as well, because this is going to be a night scene. It's going to be darker and I'm going to have a heavier ink application. I did have to mask it. There would have been no way to salvage this one without cutting out my images, which honestly is probably what I would have done if I had made the same mistake with this particular card. So for nights, I like blues, but sometimes I throw in a little bit of purple just to make it a little bit more interesting and kind of break up the color. So I covered the whole thing with my Salty Ocean, and then I'm going back in with Wilted Violet. Again, just to kind of change the tone up. Totally not necessary. If you're not into the purple, skip it. The blues are beautiful. You know, blue is my boyfriend. Big fan of them. And so I used Salty Ocean. I used Blueprint Sketch chip sapphire, and black soot. The only purple I used was the wilted violet. And I'm just holding this in place with my hand. I'm not really getting very close to the stencil outside of that first application of the salty ocean. And then you will see me do this twice. I like to do my distress inking twice when I'm doing a full background, just because I feel like it gives me a better blend. But you do whatever you want to do on your card. Just like I'm also aware that rainbows at night when there's no sun aren't really a thing. Do I care? No, I don't. I do not, because it's my card and I do what I want. I think it's cute and I think it's pretty. I love a rainbow. So yeah, that's that. For the clouds on the night scene, I did just stick with the blue, but you will notice that it's a much heavier application. I'm going up much higher because it's his night and we would not have as much light. The clouds would be much darker. Because I have the night sky to give me some interest, I didn't really feel the need to add in some extra colors. It just didn't feel necessary, but again, that would look super pretty. You could do a darker blue, you could do a darker purple. Those would all be really pretty for cloud colors, especially in a night scene. And then on the very bottom, I am going to add a little bit more shading there, just so it makes sense that we don't have these bright white clouds at the front of our card. And then once that is done, you know what's coming next if you watch my videos. Oh, here, I felt like it was a little bit too boring, so I went back in and just added a very light blue sky at the top. I didn't go over the rainbow or anything like that, just at the tippy top to add some color. But then, so now if you know me, you know what's coming next, and it is the shine. That's what's coming. It's Perfect Pearls. I knew that I wanted to use it to create some kind of shimmery stars in the sky, but I also wanted to use it on my day card, well, just because it's pretty and I like it. And as we just discovered, I do what I want. So yeah, I'm just going to Perfect Pearls adhere with water. So I'm going to mix that up with a couple of droplets of water, and then I'm just going to spatter that on. I could have covered the rest of my clouds so that it didn't get on there, but honestly, it didn't bother me at all to have some sparkle on the clouds as well, and so I just went with it. Once that is dry, I'm going to go ahead and remove my masks, and then we're going to get into the Copic coloring. There is not a ton on this card because I just have these two little images, but there's some tricks that I can kind of share with you along the way. For the clouds, if you've seen me color clouds before, you know that this pink-purple trick I did with the ink blending is not the first time I've used it. When I color clouds, I like to add in my depth with some grays. Typically for me, that's a C1 and a C3. But I also like to add some interest in there with some pinks and purples and blues. And I will be coloring them both the same way, the day ones and the night ones. The day ones are a little bit darker than I would normally go, honestly, but that's because I'm trying to make up for the fact that I have this gigantic purple ink blending right through the middle of my cloud. This is something that you would see if you were trying to color something transparent. Like if I wanted my clouds to be transparent, this would totally make sense instead of like big, full, white, fluffy clouds. And I guess that's part of the reason why I was okay with it. I knew that it wasn't going to be, this perfect image, but I also knew that it wasn't going to look totally out of place because if you were looking through something, you would be able to see the color behind it. So yeah, that's that. And I just go in and add my shading, just add some little accents and extend the lines that are already there to make them look a little bit fuller and fluffier. You can also draw like little C shapes in the middle of your cloud to give it some bulk and some shape there as well. This really is not complicated as far as like Copic coloring goes. It's really just extending the lines that are there. You just want to be careful that you don't get too heavy-handed or your clouds will be very dark. So as far as life goes, Obviously, it's been a week since I posted a video. It was crazy trying to get ready for Peanut's party. We usually do like a mass cleaning, like the day before or 2 days before, getting ready for the party because we're having all these people at our house. So that's pretty much how we spent Thursday and Friday, was just cleaning everything. And I was doing baking. So children be what they are. Like 2 days before Nathan's party, he tells me that he wants an ice cream cake. 2 days. So I go on Dairy Queen's website, and it's too late to order like a custom cake with like custom colors. And our theme this year was Fortnite. So I was like, all right, I guess I could just go in and pick up a cake, but then it's not going to match. And Nathan probably wouldn't care. I don't really love, because, I wanted it to go. I wanted it to feel like he got his own special cake. And I think a large part of it, like just being self-aware and, giving it some thought. I think a large part of it is because my mom always made our birthday cakes. Like I never had a store-bought cake. My mom always made them. And so I've always made Peanuts, and I'm sure that I will make Caitlin's. Back to the card real quick. So here I originally used a YG01, but it was just too close to the Y02. So I did end up changing it to a YG03. As far as shading for the rainbow goes, I'm really just going to add in a little bit of darkness behind the clouds. And then that's really all the shading that I did. I didn't feel like it needed a bunch of things going on. So just that little bit of darkness, a couple little flicks of a darker colored marker at the bottom, and then blended that out. I will be using those same darker colors for the rainbow on the night sky scene, just because it is, night and things would be a little bit darker. When you're talking about something being backlit, which is typically a lot of what you see in a night sky scene, because the light is behind them, or it's generally more in shadow, what you see is lighter edges. And so that's what I'm going to do with the rainbow, as well as this little kitty cat. The edges from the light behind it, which we're going to put our moon in after the fact. But I knew that I was going to put it there. So that's what I'm using as my little light source, even though it's a tiny moon from far away. But basically I'm filling it in with a lighter color now. That's what you see me doing. So it looks exactly the same as the day shift rainbow. Day shift, Lord, you can tell I've worked shift work for the last 20 years. The day scene rainbow. But then I'm going to go back in with those slightly darker colors, and I'm going to fill in the edge that's on the inside. So my outside edge will remain lighter, and the inside edge will be darker, which is how you would do, how you apply backlighting, is to just leave that lighter edge. And you can already see, even just from the pink, that it adds so much more dimension. And so while it's not necessary to do that with every single color, that is in fact what I'm going to do, just so that it all has the same amount of dimension. So anywho, so I decide that I'm going to make this ice cream cake, like I said, probably because my mama made all of ours. So I get on the Pinterest, because that's my go-to, and I find a Copycat Dairy Queen ice cream recipe. Now let me tell you, this was not hard. It was not complicated. A lot of wait time in between. So you get your chocolate ice cream, and I used a springform pan, because I thought that would be easier to just, remove the sides. It's the same kind of pan you would use for cheesecake. And so I get my chocolate ice cream, I smush it down in the bottom, and then you have to put that in the freezer for like 30 minutes. Then while that's in there, you take Oreos and you crunch them all up and you mix them with melted butter, and then you bake them in your oven for like 10 minutes. Those are your crunchies. Let's talk back to the card here. So as far as shading goes, I'm doing like a grayish white cat for the daytime scene, and then I will be doing the cat in darker grays because it's nighttime. in the nighttime scene. So basically, I chose to do my shading as if my light source was in the top right-hand corner for the cat during the day. So all my shadows will be in the bottom left. And then I did the same thing that I did for the rainbow. So I did it as if I had a center light on the nighttime card that was coming out from this moon onto my little cat. So for the Oreos, you bake those with the Oreos mixed with butter, you bake those. And then for the fudge portion, it's like light Caro syrup, some semi-sweet chocolate, and a little bit of, is it cream? Is that what went in there? Maybe it was butter. I can't remember. But anyway, you mix that all up. You microwave the, what is it? You don't microwave all of it. I think you microwave the cream and then you dump it. Yeah, it's definitely cream. It wasn't butter. You microwave the cream, and then when that is warm, you pour it over the chocolate. You let it sit for 2 minutes and then mix it up until it's all smooth and melty. Then fudge goes down on top of the chocolate, cookies go down on top of that, and then you have to let it freeze for like 3 hours. So you see how like it just takes up a lot of time in the day, not to do the steps, but just to remember to do the steps. Then once that was frozen, then you smush in your vanilla ice cream, and then you let it freeze for like hours and hours. So again, not very challenging until we come to the whipped cream frosting. Now, if you are a person who bakes or has ever made a dessert that has required a whipped cream frosting, they are so fickle. They are such a fickle thing. And so I wanted to obviously decorate his cake, and I had a game plan for that, but it did not work out. So, as I do with my cards, I'm not starting over. That's just not what I'm doing. Let's go back to the coloring for a second. So here, because my cat is dark, I don't want to lose his face entirely. So when I add the shading, the darkest part of the shading, I actually leave a little halo of lighter color around his chin so that it will separate his head from his body. It all blends in really well and it's not particularly noticeable, but it just makes his head stick out a little bit more so that it doesn't completely blend in and just make it like one blobby cat. You know what I'm saying? Nobody wants a blobby cat. But then I realized he had this little spot here that I didn't color, and I decided to do the spot and then the tip of his tail a little bit darker, and then I added some darkness to the tip of the tail on the day cat as well. So this whipped cream frosting is the bane of my existence, pretty much. It was my kryptonite. You have to use whipped cream frosting on an ice cream cake because it's basically the same consistency as the ice cream, and it will thaw at the same rate, and that is why you use it. However, it's the devil. It is horrible, horrible, horrible to work with. And they have like stable whipped cream frosting because you basically, the way that you get thick whipped cream frosting is it's super cold. The cold emulsifies the fat as you are whipping the air into it, which creates this really thick frosting. And if you keep going, you can actually overturn it and then it will turn into butter. Like it will curdle and it will turn into butter because all you're using is the fat. So for stable whipped cream frosting, you add a little bit of vanilla and some powdered sugar. That's really all that it contains. But you have to have it super cold and you have to whip it for maybe like, I don't know, 5-ish minutes. And you got it till you get stiff peaks. Cause if you go past that, it's curdled. And if you don't go far enough, it won't set up. So, right? This is too much for me. It's too much. So I make the white one that I need for my base. I do that. I pop the cake out of the freezer. I undo my springform pan and it will not come off. it is frozen to the springform pan. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. How am I going to get this cake out of here? So I end up like using the heat from my hands. Sounds crazy. And like warming up the sides of it while kind of smushing it together a little bit. And then eventually I was able to pop out my springform pan. Let's talk about the card. Here, what I'm doing with the white gel pen, I've added some highlights to my nighttime cat as well as some of the clouds. And then I'm just using this to go in and fill in some stars in any of the spots that I felt like didn't have enough spots. I'm also going to use this white glitter pen, which is opaque when it dries. And I'm going to use that to add in some shimmer to the white parts. And I'm also going to use a clear on the rainbow. So I can't get the pan out, or I can't get the cake out. I finally am able to pop it off. The regular frosting goes fine. I put that on and then I let it freeze until later on that evening when the kids are in bed. Now I pull it out so that I can do the colored portion of it so I can do my piping decorations. And typically there isn't any issue piping whipped cream frosting when it sets up correctly. Mine didn't set up correctly. I think, this is what I think, is it got too warm and it started separating. But the purple, because we were doing Fortnite, so the colors I were using were purple, like a sky blue color, and black. That's what I'm decorating with. But the purple set up enough for me to use it. And then I piped like my little stars on the top and on the bottom. And then put it back in the freezer, and then I was going to, make the blue frosting and then pipe next to the purple ones, put it in the freezer, so on and so forth. What ended up happening was all I had was purple stars because by the time that I got to the blue, it was too warm and it wouldn't set up. And when I tried to put it on the cake, it literally just slid down the side of it, slid down the side of my perfectly white cake. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to try it again. So I do, and it's still not cold enough and it won't set up. And so now it's like midnight and I have random purple piping on this cake and that's it. And the party is the next day. First world problems, I know, but it was a crisis for me in the moment. So thankfully I have Walmart delivery for my groceries. So I put in a grocery order and I buy more heavy whipping cream, which will then be at my door the next day at like 8 a.m. I will tell you the rest of the party stories in another video, but it ended up being like the party started at 2 and at 2 o'clock I am finishing his cake decorating. And what I ended up doing was not piping at all. I scraped off all those purple stars and then I just picked up like little spoonfuls, or like I use the cake spreader, so little like slatfuls of each color frosting and just slapping it on the side using one of those little smoothing spatulas to mix it all together so that it looked kind of like marbled or whatever with the blue and the purple and the black. And then I called it a day because it just was not coming together for me. And I know he was like, Mom, love my ice cream cake, blah, 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 blah. He didn't even know I made it. That's how just oblivious he is. He was like, yeah, I thought you bought it. And I was like, nah, fam, I've been making this for 2 days. 2 days I've been making this ice cream cake. But he was a big fan of it. So now I'm sure I'm going to have to get more proficient in ice cream cake. But I also made cupcakes because some people don't like ice cream cake. Also, I didn't even know if I'd have enough ice cream cake for all the people who were coming because it was only a 8-inch round. So anyway, back to the card. Here, I've put the sentiments on with some foam. One of them I left together, one of them I cut apart. And then I'm just going to add in some clear gems. These are actually the Aurora Borealis ones to accent the sentiments. And then that's it. 2 totally different looks for day and night. Again, I will encourage you to check out the sale. They always have wonderful sales on Wednesdays. And thank you guys so much for joining me, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye.